Hello. Purpose of this video is to talk about the language of functions, specifically the thing you might have seen before, this language f of x. So just to briefly break it down, f of x is a shorthand notation, and it enables us to talk about a function and define the independent and dependent variables in just one clean statement. So when we see this language, we pronounce it f of x. A lot of times people just say, well, that's the same as y. For the most part, that's true because f of x in its entirety, the whole phrase f of x, is referring to the value of the dependent variable. But what it's telling you as well is it's telling you the independent variable that is paired with it. So if you just say y, you just know that y exists. But if you say f of x, you're saying that the value of the function f depends on the independent variable x. So some vocabulary here. First of all, f is the independent variable because it's outside, so it's the focus of our function or discussion. And then the of x part is a note to the reader. It's called the argument. It corresponds to the independent variable. So when I say f of x, what I'm saying is there is a function whose values are determined by changes in the independent variable, which in this case we'll call x. So a statement like this, which would read f of 3 is 5, actually translates more explicitly as when x, which is the independent variable, is 3, then y, the dependent variable, would be 5. So in other words, if x were 3, y would equal 5. The parentheses here does not mean multiplication. This is not f times 3 equals 5. This is the value of the function when x is 3 is 5. So we have to make sure we understand the difference. When we're using parentheses, it doesn't always mean multiplication, and in function notation, it most certainly does not. So one mistake that people make here is they'll take this f of 3 equals 5, and they'll solve for f by dividing both sides by 3, and then they say that f equals 5/3. That is a major math crime, so please do not commit it. Here, another function. See, we don't always have to use f. I could use g. So g is another common function moniker, and it says g of 7 equals -2. What that says is 7 is the argument corresponding to the independent variable, and -2 is the y value, or corresponding to the dependent variable. So what that says is when x equals 7, y is going to equal -2. On a table, the 7 would be in the right column for independent variable. It would be paired with the -2, or left column. Oh, I got to change that. On a table, the 7 would be in the left column, and that would be paired with the -2 in the right column. And 7, -2 would be a point if I were to make a graph of this function. One of the points would be 7, -2. Put this in more context. Here we have a function that we talked about with a cannon. The angle that the cannon was fired determined the distance from the cannon where the shell would land. So here we have a bunch of different angles and a bunch of different distances from the cannon, and there we can then say that the distance from the cannon is a function of the angle of launch. There's two different kinds of ways that we could ask questions using this function notation. The first way is the evaluate kind of question, which evaluate means find the value of. If I know the value of the independent variable, in this case 65 degrees, then I could say evaluate d of 65. What the question is asking is, what is the distance from the cannon if the cannon was launched at a 65-degree angle? Answer: 75 Guyette meters, or 7.5 Guyette meters, and the translation is, from a 65-degree launch, the shell would travel 7.5 Guyette meters from the cannon. So once again, we have the question in math language, we have the translation in English, we have the answer in math language, and we have the translation in English. We want to become skillful at all four of these pieces. Here's another kind of question, and this time the question is solve, not evaluate. When it says solve, we know the dependent variable value, and we need to find out what possible a values would correspond. So when the question solve d of a equals 10, I know the y value, and that is to say I know that the shell landed 10 Guyette meters from the cannon. The question is, what angle was it launched at to give me that result? The response to the question is d of a equals 10 means that, we use this arrow right here, it's like an equal sign with an arrow on the end of it. It means that a has to be 45 degrees. So the translation is, a shell that landed 10 Guyette meters from the cannon was launched at a 45-degree angle. In case you haven't noticed, the values that I get from my response right here comes directly from the table. In the table it says if the distance was 10, that corresponds to a 45-degree launch. And here, if the angle was 65 degrees, here's 65, that corresponds to a 7.5 Guyette meter landing. It's take a while to get used to this language, but here's two more examples. We have these tables. We've seen these tables before. Here we talk about cost of first class mail, and that depends on the weight. So we would say C of W, cost, which is determined by the weight. So a statement like this, C of 2 equals 60, has a direct translation that a 2-ounce envelope would cost 60 cents to mail. C of W equals $1.29, directly translate is a solve kind of question, and it's asking if the cost of shipping was $1.29, what was the weight associated? The answer, 5. Here you can see the cost was $1.29 associated with a 5-ounce weight package. Here, this one is a miles per gallon, so how efficient a car is depending on when the car was built. And so we go all the way up to 1998 from 1940, because it's years after 1940. So the statement f of 10 equals 13.9 has a direct translation. Your job would be to translate this into English. So if f of 10 equals 13.9, what does that mean in English? And that's another question could be asked. What is the value of f of 58? And what does it mean? And the final question, if f of t was 15.9, what is the value of t? What's the question in English? And what does the answer mean? I'm going to post all 3 of these questions on your Google Doc assignment, and I would like you to use the table of values to answer each of these 3 questions. If there's any questions, obviously, shoot me an email and I'll help clear it up for you. Otherwise, another way to go would be to rewind the video, pause it, read what's on the screen until you understand the nature of what's going on. Thank you and have a great day.